This is the same question. Esther Dyson, who got the red scarf, she wants to be a cosmonaut or an astronaut or something. She wants it so badly that she went to Russia and trained and got screwed by some other guy who just beat her to it somehow, Charles Simeoni. But since you wanted to go into space, you probably, it seems crazy that you would then give the Russians or whoever all kinds of reasons not to send you into space.
Okay, well, here, I'm PGP number 3. I also had my genome done in a much lighter weight way, just the SNPs by 23andMe. And
Early.
I invited, but it never occurred to me that they wouldn't want to. My entire family, which is about 23 or 24 people, father, mother, stepmother, whole brother, 5 half-sisters, aunt, niece, and a whole bunch of half-nieces, all done. And
you asked them, or they?
I just sort of sent them the kits. It never occurred to me they wouldn't want. We're a family of scientists, so.
You are a weird family, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Maybe we should explain.
But
so when I was doing my cosmonaut training, the Russians required me to buy both life insurance and, in the end, I had to get my health insurance notarized. When I got to get this health insurance, I said, "Do you want to see my genome?" And they said, "No, please, we don't." So I have no worry that the health insurers, they have legal restrictions against it, which is actually a problem, because if I were a health insurer and wanted to lower my costs over time, even if, as I properly should, take all comers, I would want to know their genome so that I could give them better treatment and lower the costs of healthcare. Even if I'm not inherently interested in their welfare, I am inherently interested in the costs of treating their illnesses. So long run, we want a way for...
Yeah, but that's the policy.
Okay.
You want to go to space, and you're giving people, you're handing people a chance to tell you, no, you can't, because Charles has a better something than you have.
I'm 58. I'm not dead yet. Chances are they're not going to find out anything terribly interesting. I have colon polyps. My father has colon polyps. I've had one removed. So it's clear if I live long enough, I will get colon cancer. I might die of some other thing. But you have only 100% chance of dying. Your total risks cannot total more than 100%. So, well, no. Your population risks can, but for you personally, there's only...
Some people think that dying is optional.
Yeah, well, in most people's heads, they have 300% chance of dying because they add all these things up.
I don't want to argue about the probabilities of dying right now.
I was not worried about the privacy thing, and nobody in my family was that told me.
Nobody in your family. All right.
No, mind you, they didn't publish it. They're just all on 23andMe and sharing.
I see.
But we're trying to get my dad and my brother.
Let me ask Roslyn. You, as I understand it, you're fresh. I mean, you got assayed a while ago. You just recently found out what you look like. Or am I wrong about this? I know you know what you look like, but I mean, what you look like.
Mirrors are usually pretty effective. I've had information going back for the last 10 years. I actually did some of my own SNP genotyping. I've done the 23andMe, the Navigenics screening, and I've been getting a steady stream of information from George's group as well.
This is so weird. You have to realize, like, she was on Twitter yesterday. I'm sorry if I Twittered you, but you had just gotten your brain scanned at Harvard something or other.
Yeah, I'm doing mine in the morning.
Oh, see, what's with you people?
I want to know it all.
Knowledge is power. I want to know all of the information, and the same for my family. When I signed up to do this, when I actually started the company that I was involved in with Siona, my whole family got together, did cheek swabs, and we sat down with our results, comparing, you know, who's got what SNP and how interesting that is. I think that I'm not from a family of scientists, but from a family that's very intellectually curious. So they're very interested.
And yours is going to be public?
Oh yes,
and
absolutely.
So how do you feel with it just being out there?
So, I'm pretty, I guess I have a sort of cavalier attitude about it. I'm not concerned about it. I don't think that n = 1 is very valuable scientifically, but if it helps to raise awareness, if it helps to take away some of the fear factor for other people to see, I'm 48, here's a relatively healthy 48-year-old woman, and here's my genome, and guess what? It didn't kill me to find out about my DNA. When I started in this field in the year 2000, when I would talk to people about genes and DNA, there were two things that they knew. They knew that OJ had it, and that genes could kill you. And so for the last 10 years, I've really worked to try and raise awareness that, you know, this is fabulous information. We need to take advantage of this to help us to learn more about how our bodies work, to learn how to be more healthy individuals.
So, all right, in a field of evangelicals, apparently, there's at least one, Ting, who's been always a little bit, at least you have some doubts in your head, as I understand it, and that you and George, have you guys been talking, this is a wife and that's the husband.
We have spoken,
Yeah.
Recently.
So did he propose this for the whole family? You have a daughter, or did he just propose it for himself? And what was your reaction going in?
He proposed it for himself. He's been proposing it since almost the day I've known him, before there was a family. And I think he believes very much in personal choice.
Do you, I think, Esther, could you give her, yeah, apparently, you didn't know you were coming, so we didn't mic you. Just stick it on your, that's going to get very intimate. Yeah, I know. Well, but you're just looking at your brain as being
How does
published.
this sound?
Yeah, that's good.
So I was going to say that George has been interested in his personal genome since the day I've known him, but he also believes in personal choice. So he has put no pressure on anybody in the family to have their genome sequenced.
And when you went, oh, okay, thank you. Look, now everybody can get their mics back. When you went, what did you say to him? I don't know whether, what?
Well, I had my concerns about how the world would receive information about his genome, but I thoroughly, absolutely believe in the ultimate good outcome of this if the world monitors it properly and if people have voice. We are working very hard to make sure that there is enough education of the general public so that everybody does have voice. I was also concerned not so much about myself until I became a mother or decided to become a mother. And there I feel that before I had my child, I of course didn't know her, but I did feel that she should have a decision for herself. And so I was concerned that by putting out George's genome that the world would know half of her. But we thought about the pros and cons of that and George's good intentions and decided to go ahead with George having his genome sequenced, but I decided not to keep my daughter's privacy for a while.
And you? You have not done that?
I have not.
Okay. So now let me ask you guys, just collectively, when a decision like this is made in a family, let's suppose you have a twin, and let's suppose you want and the twin doesn't. How do you handle? What should you do? Yeah, George.
So in the Personal Genome Project, one of our policies is that a member of an identical pair of twins can't join unless both of them join. That's the rule for this particular project.
What about brothers and sisters?
Brothers and sisters are actually less predictive than parents and children. I think we still try to encourage family enthusiasm rather than dispute. And we have so many volunteers. I think we're clearly starting with the most enthusiastic families.
Yeah, clearly. But I mean, now what about the thing that Jim mentioned? What about the possibility that going forward you can identify certain traits in a child as coming from one side of the family and the other? So the ancient cry, that's your side, he gets that from your people, now becomes a documentable. Have any marriage counselors or anyone weighed in on this question? Has it occurred to, for example, Jay, did this come up in your family discussions?
It didn't really. You know, I think that we will know enough about the genome where those kinds of predictions will become possible, probably creating a whole new industry of advisors to people, but I think that's a ways in the future, so we're not so concerned about it right now.
In Esther's case, I'm quoting you, you went into some kind of weird family game, you say, in which you were fascinated to discover which sisters are most alike, which grandchildren take after which parent. you've got your grandfather's pigment and that kind of thing. I mean, it sounds like for your family, this very curious family, that this became a kind of game of boggle or something.
No, we don't actually all sit around. It would be fun to do that, but it's more you can. And these numbers are. So what you do in 23andMe, you compare. There's a million SNPs, and it's basically a mathematical calculation, which is pretty meaningless. If my liver is like her liver, is that really very exciting or not? You're much more interested in my personality versus someone else's personality. Some's genetically determined, some is simply having grown up in the same family, whatever. But there's a certain fascination with numbers, which may be not meaningful, but nonetheless are fascinating. And as you learn about statistics, as you learn about the meaning of the genome and its lack of meaning compared to other factors, it's much more interesting to do it in the context of your own family and people you really know than to look at it theoretically. So looking at the numbers is fascinating, even though in the end, I will make no decisions on it. I won't love one sister more or less because she's 82% like me versus 81.
Well, let me give you a harder one. Maybe I'll give it to you, Greg. I'm a med student, and I decide that I need textbook money and beer money, so I go to a sperm bank, and I get $100 for doing you-know-what. So then off goes my sperm somewhere, and then meanwhile, 24 years later, Jeanette in Wisconsin and Doreen in Milwaukee, in Chicago, go to some site somewhere, and they put in their genomes. And it looks like they don't know each other, but it looks like they have extraordinarily similar genomes. So they start writing each other. They then quiz their mothers, and the mothers know vaguely that somebody in New York named Robert, a med student, was somehow involved. And so they then go get other people, and they one day Mr. Beer Money, am sitting there, and the phone rings, and it's like 4 girls and 1 boy.
That's a bad day.
Maybe it's a good day.
Could be a good day, but it's a day, that's for sure. You know, look, I think you're asking very provocative questions that are multiple steps in the future of what could happen here as this becomes stimulating to more and more business models and issues. I will tell you, though, that I think the real focus right now of why people should be getting sequenced is to solve disease. And it's very medically oriented, and I would say that's where the propensity of effort needs to go to. And not to dismiss the consumer genetics aspects of questions you're asking, but to me it's far more important that we really focus in on how sequencing with doctors can help solve disease, can help make people better. And I think that has a huge impact and a ton of work to get done. So that's kind of where we're focused.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to disagree with Greg, but if I've spent my life looking at things like the internet and the personal computer and so forth. They do a lot of good for humanity in many ways, and clearly addressing, handling, fighting, conquering disease, stopping it from happening, et cetera, is really, really important. But just as a lot of frivolous, foolish things led to the growth of the internet and the personal computer, in the same way, things that may or may not be frivolous, like discovering your extended family, all the genealogy stuff, people's narcissism and fascination with themselves and their families, people's interest in genetics is going to provide commercial energy that will help solve diseases. And so it may not be the serious end goal, but the fact that normal people who are not medical students, foolish people who are driven by vanity and curiosity are interested in this stuff and want to learn, I think is a wonderful part of what's going on here. It's not simply something that should be left to the medical priesthood.
Okay,
I was going to comment that I think the phase we're in right now with human genome sequencing, is really indicative of how early, in fact, we are, and that we're at the stage where we talk about privacy, we talk about ethics, we talk about all the theoretical bad things that can happen with the genome. And those are all certainly things to worry about. But what we need to do is get far enough along in this process where we tip the balance to the point where the advantages of having your sequence are so overpowering that the risks become minor in comparison. And this is sort of, in a way, what happened with the internet, where in the early days, all of us were a little leery about typing our credit card into the internet because of all the bad things that could theoretically happen. And today, there's very few people who worry about that,
Well,
even
I
though
think
bad things can still happen.
In our plan, we wanted to sort of throw out some of the burdens of this before we get to the benefit. So you all should now leave here.